In this video, we want to look at some measures of variation. So the common measures of variation for a set of data are the standard deviation, and I had you write down the standard deviation formula as part of your pre-lecture assignment. We are going to find the standard deviation using an app instead of using this formula. This formula is rather complicated. As you can see inside the formula, you subtract, which is the xi, minus the mean for each data value. You square them, then the sigma is the summation. You add them up, you divide by n minus 1, and you take a square root. That's quite a lot of work, so that's why we're going to use the app. In the app, it will give us the standard deviation, and so we will be asked on occasion to find the variance. Notice that the variance is a different spelling than variation. Variance is a specific measurement, and you find it by squaring the standard deviation. And you will be asked to find the range. The app will give you the largest and the smallest, so you need to do the subtraction in order to find the range. So let's take a look at how all this works. So we're going to be using the Data Center app, and the one that we're going to be using is the second one, the quantitative one. Now, I do have a link here that I'm not sure I can even get to it from here. So let me pull over our Canvas site. So here's our Canvas site, and in our Canvas site, we are going to the Statistics app. So if you see them on the syllabus page of our Canvas site, you want to go to the Statistics app, and that is this link. So once I'm here, I'm going to be using the second app, which is the quantitative one, right here, quantitative one. And so click on the link for that. And that's where I want to be. So now give me a moment and go back and look at what questions we're going to try to answer. So here are directions for entering your own data. I'm going to take you through that in a moment. And the notes here that to get the variance, you have to square the standard deviation. To get the range, you have to do the subtraction. So here we go. Our first question is, what is the standard deviation for the sleep study? What is the variance for the sleep study? And then what is the range for the sleep study? So let's go back and look at this. So under the data sets, I wanted the sleep study and the average sleep, which is the first one, but I could use any of the data sets that are preloaded. And then these are from the textbook. And so when I look across the top here, I see the standard deviation is listed for me as 0.965. So what is the standard deviation? From the app, it is 0.965. Next, what is the variance? Well, we had in our pre-lecture notes that we take the standard deviation and we square it. So I'll do that on my calculator. 0.965 squared gives me 0.931, and that is rounded to 3 decimal places, just like they ask. Now, to figure out the range, I'm going back to the app. Here I notice the maximum of 10.6, minimum of 4.95. So in order to find the range, I take the maximum of 10.6 and I subtract the minimum of 4.95, and I just do that on my calculator. And I get 5.65. So you can see the app really saves me time because I'm not doing that huge long formula in order to get the standard deviation. And so finding the variance is much easier. And again, even with the range, the app helps out because it gives me the maximum and minimum. And so I'm not having to sort through the data to find them on my own. Now, if I have my own set of data, so this set of data we're saying is like on your homework assignment, and it's not preloaded in the app for you. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to add these values to the app. So what I'm going to do is get my app here, and in my app, let me make this bigger so you can all see it, I need to enter data on my own. It automatically goes to individual observations, and that's what our data set was. And so in this enter observations, separated by a space, is where I want to go. And I want to type in the observations, and I want to put a space between them. So I'm just going through the list of data that we had. And after each one, I'm typing a space. So in my data set 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 data, up here it tells me sample size is 10, so I know that I got all of them. And so the first thing that I'm asked to figure out about this is the standard deviation, which is totally different than what I had before, and that's because I have a typo in the first piece of data. Let's make that different. There we go. Now I have the right standard deviation. So I see my standard deviation is 6.9. So they ask us to find standard deviation. Standard deviation equals 6.9. Next, they ask us for variance. So we know that that is the 6.9 squared. And so we do that on my calculator, and I get 47.61. And then they ask me for range. So I have to go back and look in my app for that information. So I see that my maximum is 209, and my minimum is 186. So for the range, I take 209 minus 186, and I get a range of 23. All right? So our next problem is to look at data that is already organized into, in this case, a histogram. And again, I want to put this in the app. So looking over here in my app, for this, I'm entering my own data, but it's in a frequency table. So as I look at this first histogram for Guilford, I see that the first age people would have entered was 13. And so this first bar of the histogram goes from 13 to 14. And so that would be like people who just turned 13, people who are 13 and a half, 13 and 8 months, etc. So the response value, their age was 13. And the frequency of that, there were 2 people. Then I go to the next bar. So these are all people who said they were 14, and that bar is 5 tall. Next one over is people who said they were 15, and that bar is 6 tall. And then we have people who said they were 16. That bar is 5 tall. And finally, people who said they were 17, and that bar is 2 tall. And I don't have any people who said they were 18. So I see that this ends at 18, so I don't have to put 18 here. Now, you see that the histogram that is created in the app exactly matches what was on my PowerPoint. But what I get from entering this in here is I get summary statistics. So it tells me that there were a total of 20 ages in my histogram or in my frequency table, and I could find that by adding up the frequency, 2 plus 5 plus 6 plus 5 plus 2. It finds the mean for me, so that's super nice. It did the average. It finds the standard deviation. Minimum age is 13, that I knew. Maximum is 17, and it gives me the median. The middle of my data set is at 13, which matches the mean. And so this is how I can enter data that's already summarized, whether I'm given data that's in a frequency table like this, or if I'm given a histogram, I can enter that data into the app and then get the summary statistics that I need.